just feel it. And when he was describing his last encounter with his family when they seen the UFO, you could really feel it. Something must have happened there, and it's kind of like he wanted to talk about it, but it didn't because it was painful. It's like he's between a rock and a hard place. He wants to come out with it, but he don't because it's painful and brings up memories. And you're right, you can feel it, and not just him. A lot of the other guests we've had come on, you can just feel it in their voice, the post-traumatic stress from the abductions and everything they've done to them. Even Calvin Parker, same thing.
Oh, yeah. Well, a lot of people, a lot of us, I will insert myself into it. And there was a few years where I wouldn't talk about it, but a lot of us have had contact experiences. If you poke at the phenomena, they poke back at you. And I'm, so many people have come forward recently. Robert Salas has come forward as an abductee. Kathleen Martin, who's my boss at MUFON's Experiencer Research Team, the ERT. She's recently come forward and said, me too. It's happened to me. She's an abductee. I had a very strange experience when I first started doing this with MUFON. As far as I remember, it hadn't happened before that, but boy, oh boy, my wife and I both, we had like a week where our house, there were 3 nights during a week where our bedroom lit up with no source of light. And I actually saw beams. And it was very, for me to talk about it, it still is, because I want people to respect me as a UFO investigator. I use a scientific method. Occam's razor is what I shave with in the morning, and this just kind of goes outside of the parameters of everything that I ever thought was real. But it's happening a lot to a lot of people. Every time I turn around, another researcher is saying, me too. It's happened to me as well. I've been visited by entities, or I've been taken. It's a thing, and it seems to be ramping up. I get a lot of reports from police officers, from government agents, people that are in high places of authority are, and I can't share names usually because they're still working for the government or as police officers, but I have a lot of officials who are coming forward and saying, yes, I've had contact or a close encounter with a UFO. Black triangles, like you were talking earlier about, Gary, and I recently had a highly decorated officer who came forward and he saw he had a close encounter with a black triangle. It was hanging over his neighbor's house. He watched it for a good 5 minutes. He couldn't believe it. He was not into this stuff. He thought it was a bunch of hooey. And, I interviewed him multiple times. I saw his badge. I know who he is and what he is. And it's a real thing. So this is happening. It's happening all over the world.
Well, I do believe it because I'm going to tell you a real quick story before we go on our next break, in the last break, you being on. But back in the mid-'70s, I took a job in North Carolina. I didn't like it. Me and my wife at the time decided we're going to drive back nonstop from North Carolina to Seattle. And we get into the desert of New Mexico. And we're driving, and I remember that the speed limit was really high or it didn't have a speed limit. I can't remember anymore. But I was going really fast in my GTO, and all of a sudden the car lit up inside, and all around the car lit up. The first thing in my mind is, it's probably a police helicopter. So I do what I thought was right. I pull off the side of the road. The light was so intense, it was burning my eyes. That much I can tell you. My wife at the time was going crazy. I opened the car door. The first thing I remember, Earl, is I didn't hear a sound. Nothing. It was dead silence, which really concerned me because this light is lighting me up, and I figured it had to be a helicopter. I was in the military. I know what helicopters sound like. Believe me. I've been on enough in my life. And all I know is the light was so intense. And I'm looking at the light, and poof, it was gone. That fast. Now, years go by. You know, I naturally I get a divorce with her. Sometimes I wish the whatever it did, they could have maybe taken her. I don't know. But years went by. I didn't think anything of it. I needed to have some surgery done, the lower part of my back, and they were talking about one of my legs. So I go to the surgeon, and he sends me in for an MRI. So I go for the MRI. I come back, you know, to the doctor's office. The head nurse comes out, and she says, "Where did you get that piece of metal in your upper back that's embedded by your spine? You know, what happened? Did you ever have surgery up there or anything?" And I go, "No, no, never. You know, I messed my tailbone up in the military, but that's down there, not up there." So I go into the doctor's office, and the first thing out of his mouth is, "Well, you have this piece of metal embedded into your spine. Have you ever had surgery?" And I go, "No." And he's looking my back over, and he says, "I don't see any puncture marks. No, nothing." I was so concerned at the time, I started saying, "Well, can we get it out? Can we get it out?" And he goes, "No, because there's scar tissue formed around it. If I go in there and remove it, you're going to be in a wheelchair the rest of your life." So wow. I kind of forgot about that for many years. One of my sons gets in trouble for drugs. I'm going to be honest with you, for drugs in Pierce County, Washington. I get him into drug court. I have to go to drug court with him every month. So here I have to go through the courthouse. The alarm goes off. Okay? They take their wands and all this stuff, and then they, take your belt off, empty your pockets, do all this. The alarm still is going off. I was even taken into that special room one time where they take a little latex glove. Okay?
Snap it.
Yeah, James, come on. Anyway, the story's straight. I still didn't associate it. But every time I would go into the court, which I had to go 12, 13 times, the alarm would go off. Anytime I would go on a commercial flight, the alarm system would go off. And again, I was taken one time with one of the airlines into the back room, and, they do a complete check to make sure you don't have any foreign objects anywhere. It didn't associate in my mind. And I all of a sudden had a guest on my show here about less than a year ago, and we're talking about, implants and all this stuff. And then it hit me. I remember that desert night when it lit up. I saw the poof and it was gone. And sometimes even myself, and it's hard for me to say this, I wonder if I was abducted myself and had an implant put in. Because to this day, I can't. Even when I went into the hospital here recently, the same thing, that the doctor in the emergency room started talking about that piece of metal up in the upper part of my spine, just a couple inches below, where my shoulder is. It made me wonder, how many people are walking around maybe with implants and don't even realize it.
That's true. I kind of wonder if Earl might have an implant, from maybe his experiences. Have you ever thought about that, Earl?
It wouldn't surprise me. I mean, I used to have a little, a strange lump behind my left calf that disappeared. But, I think they kind of probably know how to find me now at this point. I'm not really hiding from anybody. I actually encourage contact. I want to know more. No, now think about, if you have a wild animal sanctuary, what do? You go and you want the lions to sort of live like they do in their natural habitat. But every now and then you go out, you fly out there, you tranquilize them, you implant them, you tag them, and then you let them go, and you watch how they live their normal lives. And, it's probably what's going on here, But it's very, for me, this is just the most common thing. I hear stories like this every single day. I get lots and lots and lots of different people, reports of it where I, interview people, through the Experiencer research team. especially. And pretty much everybody, has had an implant. It's a thing. I don't think that it's necessarily a malevolent thing. I mean, we are all kind of living our lives. Most of the people that I know, there's some people I know that have had this happen where they're very afraid of it, and it scares them, and they're just really angry about it, And there are other people that feel like, well, it's Space Brothers, And for me, no, I don't think it's either or. I think it's just like us, but it's more highly, it's just more highly evolved and a higher technology, and it's just like we would, have a wild animal preserve and keep track of, the animals of note. And it's probably the same thing with us and our visitors.
It's interesting because, one thing I got out of Timothy Cullen, he had his implant removed. And then, several months after he had it removed, him and his wife were pretty much in the same area, and they saw a second UFO. And this UFO kind of like dropped off the side of the mountain, went in front of their vehicle, and was above the fence line, the cattle fence line, and under the power line, and took off. And I asked him, I said, well, Timothy, have you ever checked again to see if you had another implant put back in, because yours was removed? Maybe they waited and found you again to put it back in, or another one in. Up to my last time I had him on, he's always been kind of, how can you say it? I couldn't pull information out of him. He don't go so far about, his implant and not really remembering anything. The last time we talked, and that's why he's going to be on again, he now is telling me that he feels that he's been abducted again since his first abduction. And he's been holding that quiet and not telling people, maybe because he's scared to tell people. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, it's hard to come out in public and talk about it, it's hard to talk about it to your best friends. I have one guy who keeps on having them removed, and they keep on putting them back. And I'll get phone calls from him, and he's really angry about it every time. He's an older gentleman.
Wow.
He certainly doesn't care for his visitors. He told me, he said, if I could strangle them, I would. But, they tranquilize him, paralyze him, and then they go back to his foot, and boom, he's got another one. And, he's gone like 3 or 4 times so far. He still has one of them, one of the implants that they took out. I'm hoping to get that over. I do have people that can check it out. Usually, when people are implanted, it's highly magnetized. It will sometimes move if people try to remove it from. You've probably seen that one film where Dr. Lear, you can actually see it jumping away from the scalpel in the forceps. He was trying to remove this one implant, and it just didn't want to be removed. But for some reason they want to trap certain people, and why? I don't know. It's your guess. But again, I don't think that it's all malevolent. I don't think it's all benevolent. I think it's sort of like the way that we tag lions or animals that are interesting to us. I think we're of interest to our visitors. Obviously, they've been coming here for a long time.
Well,
they haven't blown up any major cities that we know of. If they're trying to invade us, they're doing a really poor job of it. So there you go.
Well, maybe they're just waiting for us to do it for them, and they can then come and do what they want to do with our planet. Anyway, we got you for another half an hour. We're going to go for our last break with you on. So we'll be back in about 2.5 minutes. We have Earl Grey, who's with MUFON. We'll be back in 2.5 minutes. You're listening to Night Dreams Talk Radio. Check out our website, www.nightdreamstalkradio.com.